It is a huge honor to be sitting here on a Friday with Chad Hines. Thank you so much for coming by today.
Appreciate you having me.
Dr. Chad Hines was born and raised in a small community in Iowa. He attended University of Iowa for his undergraduate degree in Integrative Physiology and is a graduate of the University of Iowa College of Dentistry, class of 2010. Upon graduation, Dr. Hines became an associate at a large private practice in Toledo, Ohio. Did you work with Klinger?
Klinger? Oh,
Yeah,
from MASH? Yeah, he was a thing there.
Dr. Hines associated at this practice for 5 years while he refined his skills and learned how to manage a large private practice. When Dr. Hines felt he was ready to purchase a practice of his own, he set his sights on Phoenix, Arizona, where he patiently waited and analyzed available practices. In October 2015, he purchased dental care at Moon Valley, a 9-operatory, 3,300 square foot practice in north central Phoenix. In the short 1.5 years of ownership, Dr. Hines has increased collections over 20% with 27 projections over $2.1 million. Dr. Hines looks forward to continued growth of his practice and potentially expanding to other parts of the valley. Dr. Hines has a passion for learning dentistry. He can often be found in study clubs, CEs across the country, interacting on Dental Town message boards, or even at the townie meeting. Big fan of your 400 and some post. I thought it'd really be cool to get some, instead of a 54-year-old guy talking to a bunch of grandpas, I'm sure a lot of the millennials commuting to work right now want to hear your story, and it's an interesting story.
Yeah, well, I started in Iowa, did all my undergrad dental school at Iowa.
Now, you know why I love Iowa the most?
Why is that?
I went to Creighton, and it was in Omaha, Nebraska, and you had to be 21 to buy beer in Omaha. So if we crossed that river into, what was the river, into Des Moines? Council Bluffs.
See, I'm from the east side of the state. So
yeah, so we just had to cross that river into Council Bluffs, Iowa, and they sold to you at 18.
Okay.
And so if you're an alcoholic, you had to drive across that river. And
I like Iowa. I mean, I think I got a lot of my values from Iowa. Unfortunately, my wife is from Ohio, and so that's where we headed to after dental school. Found a great practice in Ohio to practice in. Got a ton of great experience, and that's kind of really shaped me from there. As an associate, shaped me where I'm at now. It got me ready to purchase a practice, and really kind of, like I said, refine my skills in terms of a dentist.
But talk about why, if you're born in Iowa, why did you not want to stay in Iowa? If your wife's from Ohio, why did you not want to stay there? What made you come, literally, 1,000 miles to the Phoenix desert?
A couple things. It was really, we love Phoenix. We wanted a bigger city that wasn't, traffic congested, Chicago, New York. However, I wanted a good opportunity. I think that some of the issues some people face is they want to go where it's popular, where it's, you're not going to find a lot of gigs there that, are profitable. And so I just set my sights on Phoenix. We loved it there. I just waited. Actually, we were looking at a lot of places, but the right opportunity came up here, and that's brought us here.
And so when you came out of school, in what year was that?
2010 from dental school.
2010. Did you have student loans?
Yeah, I came from a not a wealthy family, so I took out pretty much the student loans that I for living and tuition, the whole works. So yeah, I came out with not as sizable as I hear some people are now, but came out with student loans. After about a year as an associate, that I started really tackling those just to get that under control. And obviously, that has allowed me to get where I'm at now in terms of paying those down, purchasing a practice. But yeah, came out with sizable student loans.
So you came out in 2010, and you were an associate till 2015.
Yep.
And so you would that be a lot of advice before someone?
Absolutely.
And what were you trying to learn? Your basic dentistry,
basic
business?
Dentistry is, it's loaded. There's so many things to learn. From, the business aspect to the dentistry aspect. And I always say, I've given a few talks to, some younger dentists, and I always say, you got to learn your dentistry first. Don't try to tackle the business and dentistry at the same time. You're going to learn business stuff at the same time, but to tackle them both, I think, would be, in my opinion, a nightmare. I did associateship for 5 years, and
in the same place?
I was in the same place. We had 2 locations. I was kind of between 2 locations, but it's the same owner, basically the same place.
So it seems like when you look at A lot of people throw corporate dentistry under a bus because of their high associate turnover,
Yep.
but you see the same thing in private practice.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Why do you think you stayed there 5? Well, first of all, when you look at your classmates from class of 2010, did most of them get an associateship job and stay there for 5 years, or were they turning and churning and burning associate jobs?
I think it was a mix. There was a couple that went owned in small towns in Iowa, which I think ownership in a smaller town would be more manageable than in a bigger city. But a lot of them had a few different associateships. You usually hear 1 to 3 years is kind of the max associateship. But, I had a pretty good associateship where, I was learning a lot. But after 5 years, I felt I was pretty much ready.
But why do you think the average associateship? Because
why?
The reason I'm asking is because you're a lot closer. I mean, I'm a grandpa. Do you have any children?
No, I do not. You
have no children. I have 2 grandchildren. Why do you think the average associate is 1 to 3 years? Why is private practice and corporate not keeping associates?
I think there's a variety of reasons. I would probably, say number one is the communication between the owner and the associate. I think they want 2 different things, and I think they don't communicate those things. Sometimes you'll see owners just want someone to fill the odd hours, Fridays, Saturdays, you name it, and to fill in for vacations. And there's some owners that will want someone there, to produce, and take care of their patients. But I think that then a lot of associates, they want to come in and they want to be busy from day one. But a lot of associates don't realize that you got to earn the trust of the patients. It's a slow process, and I feel that some people just can't handle that slow process to gain and build. So I think it all comes back to communication and seeing each other eye to eye, to knowing where each other's at in terms of how to get there.
So you didn't. It's kind of funny. You did not buy a little office.
No.
You bought a big dog. And
yeah.
some of these kids coming out of school, I compare it to a house. So if I buy a $100,000 house, it's going to be 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and then when I go to sell it, I'm selling it a $100,000 house. You could just have easily bought a $200,000 house, and maybe 4-bedroom, 3-car garage. You could have, but I see some of these kids and they'll say, I don't want to spend a lot of money on practice. I only want to buy, I'd like to get one for like $650. I'm like, dude, you're Mormon. Yeah. You have 3 kids at home. You have a stay-at-home wife. Yeah. You need a lot of money.
Yeah, you need cash.
And you're $400,000 in debt. You need to buy a $1.5 million big business. And the bigger that office is, the more cash flow you'll make, the faster you'll pay down your student loans. And it's kind of like they go $350,000 into student loans, and they say, I don't want any more debt. And now they go get a job at Aspen, and then they go buy a house and a car, and they start eating out dinners and living kind of a nice life. And it's like, okay, so now you're going to work at Aspen for 20 years to pay off your student loans. Yeah. So it's kind of like, so the question is, you bought a big office. That's rare for a kid 5 years out of school. To buy a 9-operatory, 3,300 square foot practice. What were your thoughts there?
Well, I was in a bigger practice, in Ohio, and that kind of trained me, how to own and manage that kind of practice and handle that kind of workflow. Obviously, a new grad can't do that. Maybe there's a few out there, but by and large, I don't think a new grad can do that. And that's why, I'll be on Dental Town and I'll hear people talking about the whole debt thing, like, oh, I'm already $400,000 in student loans. I don't want to pick up another, $1.4 or $5 million in practice debt. But I think a lot of people need to realize that practice debt really isn't, it's a debt, yes, but it's almost kind of a needed debt to get your cash flow to get you where you want to go. Obviously, you have to do your cash flow analysis on these practices to make sure that makes sense. And then the other advice I have for people is that you got to be an associate. You got to learn this stuff. Like if you go out and buy this $500,000 collection practice, that's not enough cash flow to pay off your student loan, especially from what I see people are coming out now with. That's why you do your time, do your DSO, your large private practice, whatever. Get your experience in, make a little money, pay down the student loans, and then actually you get a bank to loan you. You show you can produce. The bank will even loan you that money, as opposed to coming right out of school. It's not going to happen. You'll just never get there. And so you see people end up they get used to that lifestyle, working for Aspen, making a lot of money, but they just have to crank that out for 20 years, like you say.
Did you have problems getting financing for
No.
a practice that big?
No, I actually had banks competing at that point.
Who were competing? Which banks?
I had Bank of America, and it was the other one that were competing was a smaller bank here in Phoenix. It was First. I forget the name now because it's been so long. But they were going back and forth fighting with rates, and
what kind of rates and how long was the loan? Was it?
I got a 10-year loan at 4.29 is what I ended up with, and this was
10-year at 4.29.
Yep.
And it's so relative. When I got out of school in '87,
Rates are high, I'm
the
sure.
the going rate for a mortgage on a house was 14%.
Wow.
And so
Student
I just
loans are
wouldn't
that
get
high too, right?
Oh, it was crazy. I mean, so I got out of high school in 1980, and that was when the New York Fed chairman, what was his name? Paul Volcker. Paul Adolf Volcker, born as an American economist. He was chairman of the Federal Reserve under Presidents Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan from August 79 to 87. He's widely credited with ending the high levels of inflation seen in the United States during the 70s, 80s. It was an amazing story. He was appointed by Jimmy Carter, and Jimmy Carter didn't get any credit for this, but Jimmy Carter was a very smart man. He said, why is the economy so boom and bust, boom and bust, boom and bust? And they said, well, the presidents want a robust economy going into their 4-year election. So they make money real cheap, and they throw out a lot of cheap money to fuel up for the election. Then after the election, they clamp back down. And Carter said, well, that's insane. And Paul Volcker said, you need to stamp out this inflation. And so Jimmy Carter appointed him. All of his Democrats voted against him because they knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And all the Republicans were like, oh my God, this stupid Democrat President Jimmy Carter is going to swallow a poison pill. He's going to take one for the team, be best for the country. But nobody, especially on the Republicans, they wouldn't touch it. Paul Volcker went in there, and to stop inflation, he raised interest rates to 21%. Jeez. And he killed it to this day. But, I mean, it was 1980, so I had close friends who, their dad was farmers and had these big loans, and the interest rates were floating. And they went in the barn and blew their head off because they were going to lose the 5th-generation family farm. Yeah. And how would you like to be the great-great-grandson of a wheat farm in Kansas, and you lose it? And Paul Volcker was escorted from his house to the Fed every day in armed security. Wow. So many people wanted that guy killed. Wow. But to this day, we really don't know what inflation is. Yeah. And so all the, but anyway. But
yeah, I'm happy. I mean, with 4.29.
Yeah, so 4.2 per. Well, back to debt. I think people use the term wrong. I mean, like these people come out of school and they'll say, "Well, I have $300,000 student loans," and they'll throw a pity party like they're some victim. And it's like, and the next thing you hear, they're working at Aspen. Then the next thing you hear from him says, "So what are you doing?" "Oh, we just bought a house in Chandler." "Well, how much was your house?" $350, huh? So $300,000 of student loans. You thought everyone was a pity party. Yeah. And why did you buy a $350,000 house while you're an employee? Shouldn't that $350 gone to a student loan or a big dental office? Or a dental office. So. And so you'll see them, they $350,000 student loans. Within 2 or 3 years, they buy a $350,000 house. They're driving a $60,000 sports car, and then they want me to feel sorry for them because of their student loan money. So debt for going to dental school and becoming a doctor or buying a dental office business, that is leverage. Yeah, I look at debt for a house, a car, a jet ski, and a cruise, that's just raw, naked consumption.
Yep. Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I look at all debt differently. A car loan is a lot different than a student loan. It's a lot different than a practice loan. There's some that are generating income and some that are just costing you. And I think that I see even on the dental town there's a mindset out there that some people's debt is debt. And I think that the sooner you can feel that practice debt is, it's overwhelming, but you got to just look at the cash flow standpoint.
Yeah, well, it's purely leverage. I mean, you could have gotten a job at McDonald's in Iowa for 10 years at $10 an hour and saved up and gone to dental school. But you said, I'm going to use leverage. I'm going to use other people's money, and I'm going to come out of school $100,000 in debt, but then I'm going to pay it back, not making $10 an hour, but making $100 an hour. So it was a 10x leverage to say, I want other people's money. Same thing with that dental office. If you come out of school and you open a scratch dental office, it might take years to build it up and get it going. Yeah. And you don't know, you still have risk. I mean, you might not build it up and get it really going. Maybe there's too many dentists in the area. Maybe a 2008 will hit and contraction. Yeah. But when you go buy an existing practice, this practice that you bought, how old of a practice was it?
Well, it was two practices that had merged in 2011. The guy that owned the building, and probably the bigger of the two practices, he had passed away fairly suddenly.
How old was he?
I think he was around 48 or 50.
Damn, that's young. Yeah. What did he pass away of?
Cancer.
Which kind?
I think it was, I'm going to say pancreatic cancer. I can't recall exactly. I never knew him, never met him. But I hear great things about him just about every day. It was the two practices combined, and so it was a bigger practice. Then over the last few years, the guy I bought it from, it's got a little more lax and sort of ran out of energy for it, and so that's why I came in. It was a great opportunity, just to pick it up and take.
So it's nice. So first of all, let's talk about that. So in Wall Street, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, is huge. Yeah. And if you track merger and acquisition activity, it's very predictive and correlative of where the economy is going. And dentists, you see it all the time. There'll be a small town. There'll be 6 practices. Some old guy puts his practice up for sale. Wall Street would say, oh my God, I'm going to buy that and roll that into my office because there's 6 offices. I could buy that, roll it into mine. Now we've gone from 6 to 5. And then you take the purchase price of that practice divided by the number of active patients, and you're usually buying patients cheaper than you could buy them through advertising. Yeah. And advertising, you're going to pay at least $150 per head. And they don't know you. But when the guy selling the practice says, you know what, I'm going to retire, and I think the best guy to see my patients is Chad Hines. Now they come in with all that stuff like that. And then the dentists don't do that. And then some young guy like you, and you have no idea how much more energy you have than me. You're 20 years younger. And so now they're in this small town, and some young 35-year-old full of piss and vinegar Chad Hines who's ready to see 1,000 patients and work through lunch and now you got to compete against that. Yeah. And it's like why? So that was interesting. They got to a 9 office by merging a 9 operatory by merging 2 practices together. Yeah. So now, are you doing all those patients yourself, or do you have an associate?
I have. When I came on board, it was the current owner and another associate, and he had left within a few months, and then so it was me and his old associate. And then I just added a second associate, third doctor to the practice, just because the workload for me was just getting too much.
And what are your hours?
We're 7 to 5 Monday through Thursday, and then 7 to noon on Friday. And then I come in on weekends as needed, but it's not too often.
Yeah. And how many hygienists?
We have 4 full-time hygienists.
So in 9 operatories, operatories 1, 2, 3, and 4 are always hygiene?
Yeah. Well, then 1, 2, 3 are hygiene, and then 8 is hygiene. Yeah.
But 4 out of 9 chairs.
4 out of 9 chairs
doing hygiene.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the rest of the doctor chairs.
So now, what is your mix of dentistry? What type of dentistry do you like to do?
I like the surgical aspect of it. I love placing implants, love extractions. Kind of the buddy stuff. It is kind of my favorite. I like more complex cases. Keeps life interesting. Worn dentition. Those are always fun. Implants. I would say my favorite part of the day would be placing implants, extracting teeth, and then the other 2 associates. They don't do a whole lot of that, and so. But it's part of the problem is why I came into the practice, and you put your game face on for the first year and a half because that's your baby. You gotta milk that. You gotta treat these patients well just to retain them. But now the problem is they all want to see me for everything, and so now I'm trying to just get focused on that more implant surgical stuff, and then some of the other associates are taking care of the other stuff.
So when they come out of school, it looks like in endo if you're like me where you want patency out the bottom of the apex.
Yeah.
And when you obturate that thing, you want to puff a sealer and you're an apical barbarian. And if you read too many endodontic textbooks and you want to be a half millimeter short of the apex and all that and make it all clean and pretty, you're a pulp lover.
Yeah.
But I take that on more than dentistry. So many of these kids come out of dental school and they don't like blood. And they just like the white pretty stuff. They want to do bleaching, bonding, veneers, cosmetics, sleep apnea, Invisalign. And then there's these bloody barbarians like you and me who just, I mean, like one of the reasons I pull wisdom teeth so fast, I can pull all 4 wisdom teeth in under 10 minutes, 99% of the time. That there's nothing that tooth can do to hang on to that jaw. But when I lay a flap, I peel like a banana. I see white mandible. When I erase buccal bone, it's like one time, it's like gone. Yep. Boom. But to me, it seems like the people that like blood and guts, whether it be extractions, root canals, implants, it just seems like it's an easier path to success than if you just don't like blood and guts.
Well, I think, especially...
And one last thing to interrupt, but the average general dentist makes $174 take home. But endodontists are $354, oral surgeons are $411. If you just look at the 9 specialties, the endodontists and the oral surgeons and the periodontists are making 2.5 times the general dentist. So the white pretty stuff doesn't really show up on the numbers.
100%. The biggest thing I see too is that there's a lot of big cases that hinge on implants, endos, extractions. If you say to a patient, well, I'm going to refer you to this guy for this guy for this, this guy for this, they kind of go, oh, okay, and they just kind of never. Whereas you say, we're going to do all this, we're going to sequence it, we're going to do it like this, they say, where do I sign up? And that's especially in the last 8 to 10 months. I don't know if it's an economy thing or just, I'm getting more comfortable, doing this stuff. It just left and right, these big cases where they need 2 implants, 3 root canals, a bunch of crowns, opening the bite, the whole works. So I think even just from the fact of doing the procedure, and profitability from the procedure, it's just the whole case in general, case acceptance. Now, are you born after 1980? Are you I was born in 81.
So you're a millennial then. So
I guess so.
Yeah, 1980 is the beginning of the millennials. 45 to 64 is a baby boomer. I was born 62, so I'm a baby boomer. But it seems like the millennials are the first generation in the history of humanity where they're obsessives. Well, do I like my job? Does it have meaning and purpose? For the last 2 billion years, 100 billion sapiens have come and gone. How many of them 100 billion sapiens said, I like eating mastodon shit in a cave. I like coming across a rotting 4-day-old animal and chewing the cartilage. There's a shitload of humans in the last 2 million years that didn't love their job, and they'll say things, well, I don't really like endo. Well, I don't give a shit if you like endo. You have $350,000 student loans. This person's in pain. They didn't go to sleep last night. You're a doctor. They took time off work. They show up at your office, and you're like, well, I don't know. I don't like endo. Well, maybe you won't like the first 100, but you'll like the second 100 more. And by the time you do your third 100, you're sitting there thinking, you like what you're good at, and how can you get good at it if you never do it because you say you don't like it? And maybe you should just do your damn job and learn to like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, obviously, there's a competence level there but absolutely,
but how do you get competent if you
don't do it?
They'll say like, well, I refer out a second molar. Why? Well, I'm not good at second molar. Well, how many second molars have you done? Well, I don't do them because I'm not good at them. Well, maybe you should do the next 100. And I'm sure after the next 100, you'll be twice as good at second molars. And the thing I don't like about it, can you imagine breaking your leg and going to the hospital and the doctor says, well, you know what, we don't do legs. We just do arms and fingers and ears. But here's a referral. And I know you came in an ambulance and you're in pain, but, go make an appointment across town. There's 9 specialties. One of them is public health dentist. And, everybody wants to talk about ortho, periodontist, pediatrist, but you're a public health dentist. When someone shows up in your office and they're in pain and you have a dental degree, maybe you should fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, is from even, learning it from a diagnosis standpoint, if you're great at, endodontics, you're probably great at diagnosing it too. And I even think that goes into implants as well, to where, how do you diagnose and send to a periodontist or oral surgeon for an implant if you don't know if that needs grafting, you don't know what's all involved, and you don't even know how to restore it, when it comes back with the implant. So, I mean, you got to learn. You got to learn this stuff.
And that's what I've always told the orthodontists. Every general dentist who ever went and learned how to do their own ortho, usually within 2 years they stopped doing it. Because the orthodontist is flipping these patients every 15 minutes and all these rubber band checks and all that stuff. But after they quit doing it, they diagnose 2 to 3 times as much ortho because they didn't see it before they learned how to do it. Yeah. Now they see it. So when you came out of school, how many implants have you placed at Iowa?
We didn't place any in our program.
So how did you go from, I graduated from dental school in 2010, I've never placed an implant, and now you're doing these implant cases with a CBCT?
Yeah, well, obviously CE, boatload of CE. I basically, there was about a year there, I just tackled every CE I possibly could. That sounded interesting to get you, a good experience. And then as you take one, you advance to the next level. And the last one I took recently was at the Brighter Way clinic here in downtown, where you did a lot of edentulous implants.
Was that with who was that?
Dr. Joe Meanfar.
Right.
Yeah.
And he teaches at the
he does a lot of things
at Midwestern.
He's a little everywhere doing.
Is he a friend of yours?
No, I just know him from the course.
Yeah. I need to get him. Well, who were your standouts in your implant training? Dr. Miron Fur?
I took a course with Leo Moline up in Las Vegas. He's based out of Wisconsin.
What was his name?
Moline, Leo, M-A-L-I-N.
Leo, L-E-O, then...
M-A-L-I-N.
Leo Moline, and is he an orthodont or oral surgeon?
He's a general dentist.
And he teaches implant surgery?
Yep.
And where?
I think, he's based out of Wisconsin, but the course I took was at the LVI. That's the only course I've taken at LVI. It was their implant course.
Huh, Leo Malin.
And, a lot of the stuff is dental town. Learn a lot on dental town. And then just obviously research and, you get into a few of those small complications. You start.
When did you start dental town? Was that in dental school or after you graduated?
I think I browsed it a ton before I created a login and started getting active with it. The more I wanted to learn, that's when I started to become active and more converse with people and ask questions and throw things out there and respond to things.
What is it about the posters? I mean, most of my emails are asking me questions, and I say, well, you should ask this on Dental Town.
Yeah.
And they're always the same thing. They're scared. They're shy.
You're behind the keyboard. You can't.
I mean, there's people that have been on Dental Town since 1998 to 2017. They come on 3 times a week for an hour, and they've never made a post. And I'll say, well, why don't you ask that question on Dental Town? And they're just scared. Why do you? I mean, you've made 400 posts.
Yeah.
Why are you not afraid to ask a question? And 90%.
I guess
of your
it all
colleagues
starts
are.
with the first post. If it goes successful, you keep posting. But you'll see a lot of obviously with any message board of any type or whatever forum. You'll see people negative reactions. Say, "Oh, you're doing it all wrong." I think that's what people fear. If I had to guess, just people throwing each other under the bus, and that happens, I think, in any forum. But by and large, 95% it's all positive stuff. They're there to help you. I'm there to help people. Give them my feedback, or I'll throw things out there, hoping the same.
Yeah, and even lecturers. So many of the lecturers, they're used to, they just lecture and give a presentation. And they're literally shocked if someone disagrees with them. Mm-hmm. And where I come from, the camp of there's 7.5 billion humans on Earth, and you can't get 2 of them to agree on anything.
Yeah.
I mean, even my 2 sisters that are nuns, Catholic nuns, disagree on half the issues in the Bible. Look at the Supreme Court. They're all reading the same Constitution. They all went to law school, and most of all the major decisions are 5-4.
Yeah, interpret this differently.
So it's like, dentists, I mean, if you think you're going to get all the dentists to agree with you, you need to just start drinking heavily right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's never going to happen.
I mean, dentistry, it's not black and white, that's for sure. There's the majority of it's a gray area where you can, do it 8 different ways and probably get the same result, And it's just how someone might have a different experience doing one thing and the other guy has different experience doing another, and usually I think we all end up with the same result, hopefully.
So you said you went to the Strummin system?
Yeah, I use all Strummin.
All Strummin. So Strummin is out of Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
Noble Biocare is out of Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
What made you pick Strummin out of Switzerland?
I was going. There's a lot of systems out there, and I guess some of my experience restoring implants is that the parts and pieces are, there's. I'm sure you open a drawer and there's just pieces everywhere, and what I wanted to focus it into one system, place one system, restore one system, just keep your inventory down and be good at one system. I'll restore different, Nobel, whatever, and it's just a little different. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm not real familiar with this, but I like Strom because it's probably not going to change. It's always going to be there. My fear is, which I think is going to be an issue in dentistry in 2010 now, even years, that we got so many implants out there, and there's so many small companies that when these guys go under, where's the parts?
And how many have already gone under?
Yeah. And so, like, when a guy comes in on Friday, like I had this guy came in on Friday at 11:30 and we close at noon, and he's got a loose implant on some system I've never heard of, and I can't even find him on the internet. And so I know that Strom is going to be around. I won't, because if I'm going to practice for 15, 30 years, whatever it may be, their parts are going to be available.
And here's the other thing. It's one thing when you mess up on a single tooth, like say it's a failed root canal.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons you can tell how much lawsuits are going on by your premium.
Yeah.
Like dentists say, well, there's so much lawsuits going on. Then why is your premium so low?
Yeah.
I mean, an OBGYN, their malpractice is over $100,000 a year. Because when you screw up a baby, when you screw up a newborn baby, you're in deep shit trouble, and the whole family wants to kill you. But with these implant cases, these are the bigger cases.
Mm-hmm.
And my gosh, when a big implant case goes south, and then you go to court, and if Noble Biocare or Strummin or Implants Direct, so these major companies, they have tons of research that shows everything they did.
Yeah.
And you're using some no-name brand, some $89 implant from Russia, and it's not pretty.
Yeah. Straumann, obviously they got, they're the number one selling brand too. Obviously they have all the research behind them.
Well, they went on a big M&A activity. They bought the number one implant system out of Brazil, Neodent.
Mm-hmm.
They bought one of the biggest ones out of Israel. They almost bought Megagen out of South Korea, but that fell through at the very end,
Mm-hmm.
which makes me think they might go back to that drawing board. So lots of M&A. So they're a major player.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. With some, I don't know what their goal is with some of these, if they're going to just keep selling them or just eliminate some of the market of other implants. But, I think...
You mean like them buying Neodent?
Yeah.
Are you using... Now, since you use Strummin, do you only use the Switzerland Strummin?
Yeah.
Or do you use some of their other portfolios of like Neodent?
Just the Switzerland Strummin, straight up. I get the reps come in quite a bit, with their stuff, but I don't know, I just had so much success with Straumann that it's hard to, I don't have a lot of reason other than they're a little more pricey.
And what's your favorite implant out of Straumann? Which one are you using the most?
I use the bone level, the BLT, or the bone level.
The BLT?
Yeah.
The bacon, lettuce, and tomato?
Yeah, they have this new one. That's what it's called. No, it's the bone level tapered, but just the CrossFit, the Rock Solid. Yeah, it's the
bone level, the BLT, the bone level
That's a tapered one, which is going to be your non-guided, and then they have a guided just called the bone level, or the BL, that you use for guided surgery. It's going to be a parallel.
Okay, well, you just walked into the biggest. You just walked into the sliding glass door on Dental Town Implants. One of the most controversial things in implant dentistry is the guided surgery. So you have all the old baby boomers. Mm-hmm. You find any 50 to 70-year-old oral surgeon, periodontist dentist that's placed 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. They never use a surgical guide.
Yeah.
Then you meet any millennial who's placed under 100, and they swear you have to have a guided surgery.
I started that way.
You started with guided surgery?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't feel comfortable quite, and after you do enough guided, and then you start opening tissue more, and you get more comfortable, and now I do less guided than I do guided. I'll do guided for like multiple unit cases.
Yeah, guided for multiple unit. I mean, I can see that
just for placement. I mean, because on a
yeah.
CT, you can virtually put the restoration there, so you're going, just right in the middle of each restoration, because it's a restorative, procedure. It's not a surgical procedure. So I put it right underneath where my planned restoration is, not where necessarily I just think that it's.
Every laboratory technician that I know that's done it for 30 years and has made 10,000 restorations or more, or 20 or 30,000 restorations, they say on every one of their clients they can tell if you're right-handed or left-handed.
Oh yeah, because your tapers. Yeah.
Because they're all leaning towards the right-handed.
Yeah.
And it makes you want to keep. Every time he tells me I would have moved the patient at the 12 o'clock one last time and look at it straight down, because it's like, okay, how can you make your lab man not know?
Yeah.
If you're right. So your first 100 implants, what % of those were single units?
I think probably all of them.
And what % of your first 100 were guided?
Probably 80.
Now, what % of them on a single unit are guided?
20 to 30%, I would say. Just even if it's if there's narrow bone and the patient's got some medical history, question marks, and I refer that.
Say that again.
If they have if it's a real skinny ridge where you're going right between two cortical plates, I'll refer that out, because that's probably a grafting case, or if the patient has some significant medical history.
And who are you referring to in the Valley?
Dr. Augustine, Dr. Kimball for periodontist.
So Kimball for your periodontist?
Yeah, he's over in Arrowhead area, and Dr. Augustine, he's at like 40th. 40th.
Oral surgeon.
He's a periodontist.
So you're using periodontist.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So a lot of people that the oral surgeons are, they're just big flaps looking for the right bone and placing a great bone, but less concern of the tissue in the jaw. Is that a bad rap for them, or do you? But you refer to two guys and they're both periodontists. Do you think the periodontists are doing a better job than the oral surgeons?
I don't have good enough sample size probably for that, but I would say that they're a little more gentle with the patients, and I tend to find that the angulation is a little bit better. I mean, I don't refer too much for oral surgeons for implants. However, I get a lot of them to restore. Either just from the patient knows an oral surgeon, they go there or whatever. And I find that the angulations, and placements a little more accurate with the periodontist. And that's just, like I said, I have a small sample size.
And that's why the one oral surgeon who's placed one of the highest level, Jay Resnick, who's an oral surgeon in LA, who's made several courses on Dental Town. He's the only oral surgeon I know that uses guided surgery 100% of the time. And Jay tells me and texts me, every week that, Howard, if I freehand it and I get it right 99% of the time, that means 1 out of every 100 ain't perfect, and my referrals looking at something that ain't perfect.
Absolutely.
And Jay says I'm gonna nail it every single time, and he's an oral surgeon, and I think they have to fight that bias. That oral surgeon is a little rough, not into the angulation, and he's an obsessed oral surgeon with guided surgery.
Yeah,
and he admits it's probably only affecting 1 or 2% of his cases, but he said another great example is the airline industry. If they had a 99.99 success rate, that means 4 airplanes would crash every day in America.
Yeah.
So 99.99 ain't good enough for a pilot. They need 9999. They need 6 nines after that point.
Yeah. And the only time, if I have any question whether we're close to anatomy or, we're close to perforations or, we got some weird angulations of adjacent roots, it's definitely guided. But, if you got big fat bone and, hitting right in the middle, that's going to be pretty straightforward. Usually I'll go non-guided. But
So Carl Misch did, I think, the most famous podcast I've done so far. He did it basically on his deathbed. And it was a very interesting, I do my shows, they're an hour because the commute's an hour. But we went 2.5 hours because he was dying. He felt like he had a lot of stuff to say. And I'll tell you what, man, you're a different beast on your deathbed because you're going down. And he wanted, and he had so much to say. I just let him keep ranting. But one of the most controversial things he said was that drawing blood and splitting platelets, and it's all bullshit. It's all voodoo. You don't need any of that stuff. And some of my very good friends said, I just don't agree. But it's kind of hard not to agree with Carl Misch. He wrote the #1 selling textbook of all time in any subject, Misch Implantology. And some people say, well, Carl Misch spread a lot of misinformation. But that guy was one of the biggest gurus. Probably it was Brandmark and then Misch.
Yeah.
I mean, really, kind of like it was Pierre Fichard, then G.V. Black. So what do you think of one of the greatest implantologists of all time, Carl Misch, saying drawing blood, splitting platelets, all this stuff, just noise?
I don't do any of the PRF stuff. I mean, there's just so many... and that's the thing, too. It goes back to, talk about Dental Town, and different people have different opinions on that kind of stuff. I suppose it doesn't hurt. Obviously it hurts to get, to prick the blood and take the blood, but, you see all these cases come out great, that didn't have all the fancy stuff, and then you see some of these cases that had the fancy stuff fail. I guess, to me, the jury's out on a lot of that stuff, to be honest with you. I don't know if I have a strong opinion either or on all the fancy grafting.
Well, I would say that dentistry is an art and a science.
Yeah.
It's definitely more art than science, only because we're at a time of the information curve for Homo sapien that I don't even think sapiens at this part of the journey know 10% of all we're going to know about dentistry 1,000 years now. I mean, when they write the last textbook on dentistry, and there's no more future editions, I think what is Pathways to the Pulp on 8th edition or 9th edition. But when there's no more editions in dentistry, I don't think we're 10% of the way down that journey. And so, and some of my friends, one of the things they like about the spinning the blood and all that is just when they're mixing that with their bone grafting, the putty, it's just the art of it all works better in their hands.
Yeah, and I think it can be from a membrane standpoint, it's their own membrane, which is great. It saves you biomaterials that you're using. But yeah, I mean, with this information stuff, you'll hear this like this certain aspect or this way to do it's gospel, and then 4 years later there's a new one. There's a new way.
Yeah, even that saying, I love it when people say, it's gospel. The Bible has Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but they've actually identified 19 gospels, and there's a lot of disagreements among 19 gospels. So when anyone says this is gospel, it's like, dude, there's 19 gospels, and they disagree on a lot of stuff. So you bought a CBCT. Which one did you go for?
I have the OP300, the Maxio. So it gives the full field of view.
OP300?
300. And that's a Cavo or Instrumentarium brand, same thing. I bought that. Instrumentarium?
That's a hard one I've always had.
Instrumentarium, I guess you'd say.
Instrumentarium.
Yeah, it's a Cavo brand.
Yeah.
I think you can see there's a picture on my website up there of it. I love that machine. I practiced dentistry different since I used that. I mean, even from...
How much did you pay for that?
I paid $105.
And was it worth $105?
Absolutely.
No buyer's remorse, no buyer's regret?
Not a cent of it. It takes pantomographs. It takes extra oral bite wings as well. So, I mean, at some point, if you're going to replace your pantomograph machine, that's included kind of inside of the cone beam. But no, I mean, even there'd be a lot of cases where I'll go put an implant in and you'll see, this mile-high ridge that's so sharp that if you didn't have a cone beam, you're going to be in trouble. And so those kind of cases, it just definitely saves your butt. Or else you see cases where, you got the patient complaining in pain and, you just don't see anything on a PA. And there's something wrong, and so you take a cone beam and, there it is. I do a lot of these services at no charge to patients. The patients love it. And not only that is, I mean, it feeds into, you're going to do more implants, you're going to do more endo, you're going to do more, you name it, and you're not going to put the patient through a big run around and going to endodontist to periodontist to figure things out. You know, you can just take this quick scan, you figure it out.
I just retweeted your Twitter, Dental Care in Moon Valley. We added a new blog article. What if you could vaccinate against gum disease?
Did we?
That is
we use great dental websites, and I think they have some of that going for us. They do our website and some of our Twitter stuff as well.
Yeah. So a lot of these kids come out of school here. I mean, we're in Phoenix, and we got AT still in the suburb of Mesa, Arizona. We got Glendale to the west. They're graduating 140 students a year. These are both private schools. And they're paying a chunk of change to go to these two private schools. They're coming out like $350,000 in debt. And a lot of them, they come out and the first thing they think is, should I go invest another $150,000 in a chairside milling CEREC machine? What are your thoughts on chairside milling and CEREC in general?
When I was in Ohio, I did hundreds, if not thousands.
Hundreds, if not thousands of CERECs
I mean, that was
for 5 years in Ohio.
3 or 4 or 5 a day,
3 or 4 or 5 a day?
Yeah, we were cranking it out there.
Holy moly.
Yeah, a lot of big patient base there. And I did from the Blue Cam then to the Omni Cam the last year or two. I think you can get some great results with CEREC. I think case selection is critical. Obviously, I'll see too many busted Emaxes on grinders, second molar CEREC restorations. So case selection is important, but I have a Blue Cam that I very rarely use, except for in certain situations where the patient just needs a crown today. Just because my machine probably needs to be updated to the Omnicam, but I just can't justify it. Even with a busy practice, I think last year we did like 700 units of fixed, and I still couldn't justify it. Because, I can get some really great, zirconia or even Emax crowns for $80 to $100 from a lab. I can go into a room and, numb and prep, in 8 to 10 minutes and take an impression, and the assistant makes a temp, come back and, if you get a good lab, your seating time is 10 to 15 minutes, and that frees up the rest of my time. And so I just feel that.
Whereas if you were going to do it, so if I keep it in your office, busted molar, you're going to numb, prep, impress, temporize, and send me out the door. How long would you schedule me for in that room?
We just do we do a lot of just straight hours.
Okay, 1 hour.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you were going to chairside mill it, how much time would you have to schedule me in the chair?
I would probably go an hour and 40, and I know a lot of, I've been to all the CEREC courses and all that, and they say, you can do it in an hour, you can do it in an hour. I did a lot of them I couldn't. It's without pushing it.
But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think the average person on Dental Town, how long it takes them to do a chairside crown start to finish?
Well, if you're doing something you're milling, or firing with like Emax or now zirconia, some of that sintering time is 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Right there's basically a half hour by the time it cools off, getting it in the oven, the whole works. And then you're numbing a person, there's another, 10 minutes.
And then if you got 9 ops and 4 of them are taken by a hygienist and you got an associate, you want that chair.
Yeah, and I think that, unless you have a really, I think if you're going to make a go at it, you got to have a really good assistant that you can trust that's going to get you a good restoration. Because if you're spending all the time by yourself doing it, that's a lot of your time, whereas you could be in hygiene discussing someone else's treatment as opposed to blowing them off and flying in, flying out, coming back to your CEREC machine.
Yeah, some of my heavy hitter friends here, right here up the street from me, that I've practiced across the street from for 30 years, now what they do with their CEREC is they scan them all, but they temporarily send them out, and then they have a lab person from a local lab come like Wednesday after work, one night a week, and do all their crowns.
Yeah.
And so even then,
that would be effective. I think that's effective.
So what lab are you using?
I use the Desert Valley lab. They're a smaller lab. They focus mainly in zirconia.
Here in town, Desert Valley?
Yeah. They're out in Glendale. I use. It all depends on what I'm doing, but then I'll use Hirschberger for some stuff.
Here in town?
Yep. Van
Ryan,
Hook.
can you? Oh, Van Hook.
Yeah, I use Van Hook for like all-on-4s or certain denture cases. I use John Henry.
Van Hook for what? Did you say
all
all
on
on four?
fours. I do a lot of the all four cases with Dr. Augustine, the periodontist, and we use Van Hook for them. A lot of just basic removable I'll use. John Henry Crane, I think they're out in Mesa. And that's going to now.
He's got to be getting up there.
Yeah, I talk to him a lot. He does a lot of my cases.
My kids went to school with Van Hook's kids.
Okay.
So I used to see him. I used to see him 30 years ago dropping off my boys at school.
Yeah.
He was going there, but
Yeah, and I use
John Henry and Van Hook. They've been doing it
I've tried a lot of different labs, but I just kind of seem to kind of hone into those. And I use Arrowhead out of Utah for some cosmetic stuff.
Did you ever meet Dick Barnes?
No, I haven't.
Dick Barnes stood in that kitchen right there.
Mm-hmm.
He bought me. Every time he comes over, he's always he's really into health and fitness. He's like every time he comes over, he's like, Howard, you got to take better care of yourself. The last time he came, he brought a pressure cooker and showed me how to pressure cook whole grain rice. I guess his formula. He gets up in the morning, he runs his 5 miles, and he comes home and he loads up his pressure cooker whole grain rice, and that's his main meal. Mm-hmm. But I love that guy.
Yeah, I've been using with the lab thing. I've been here almost 2 years, and so occasionally I'll dabble in some, try them out. Throw them some easy cases and see what you get back. So. But yeah, that's
so do you? I noticed though that most all your labs are local.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've sent to Glidewell when I was in Ohio. They're all right. I just local. I just nice. Like I know the guys that are doing it. And then Van.
My only point I want to make crystal clear about labs is this: that you can believe what you want to believe, but if someone's been doing this 30 years, you've been doing this 3. There's some things you really need to think about. And lab people are afraid of dentists, and every single one of them will tell me. They see all this garbage, and if they call you, they're afraid you're going to say, screw you, just send me the back impression, I'll use another lab. And you think you're humble, but society doesn't. The lab people don't think you're humble. The practice brokers don't think you're humble. You come across to the world as a very arrogant, know-it-all, kind of a dick. And if you are that humble person, you need to let your lab know, hey, I'm not like all the other ones. Because, like, you take Van Hook or John Henry or these local labs, if you call them up and say, look, I'm a young dentist. I want to be a better dentist. They'll say, well, you know what? Come down here.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to walk you through 100 pans that I received today. Mm-hmm. And you'll start showing the impressions. And I, like what I did in my assistant, Jan, for 30 years? When I would take an implant gum impression, I believe all the wet hands should have loops on. Mm-hmm. When I go in an office and the dentist has loops and the assistant doesn't and the hygienist doesn't, that doesn't even make sense. And then you're saying, well, the hygienist didn't find that tartar, or the dental assistant left cement around the temporary. Mm-hmm. Well, you're wearing loops and she's not. Yeah. Put them on loops. But when I hand that impression, when I say, okay, this is good, and I hand it to Jan, if Jan doesn't agree, she just throws it in the trash. I'm not going to sit there and say, well, I think it's good. She says, well, I don't think it's good. And then what happens? We flip a coin?
Yeah.
So Jan throws it in the trash. Zan's the one that's going to be on the phone dealing with Van Hook. And I have gone out of my way to tell my lab guys, like, look, I am short, fat, bald. I'm humble. There's nothing you can tell me that my 5 sisters didn't call me. So, you have to get across that. And if you have a chance to use a local lab, why are you mailing your impression 1,000 miles away in an airplane when it's really nice if you have a guy up the street? Yeah. Because you need that working relationship. Yeah. And then you go down there and you look at these impressions, and like half of them still have the bloody cotton roll in there. It's like, did you not take... Yeah. Why should your lab man be looking at hepatitis A, B, C, HPV, herpes? But yeah... they can really humble you.
Well, it's nice too with the labs. There'll be times where, let's say I end up sending something more to one lab than the other, and I'll get a phone call from the owner saying, hey, is our work all right? Are we doing something that, we haven't seen too many cases from? No, it's just, so there's that communication, and they want to know if they're doing a good job, and it's not always just someone different every time making their crowns. And actually, it's kind of funny with, my Desert Valley lab. There was a week there, I'm like, gosh, this is just a little different. These contacts are too tight, the occlusion's off. And I'll call him up. He goes, Yeah, we were on vacation for a week. You know, you can tell the difference from one person to the next, you know, when you're just doing enough of them and you get the same product every time, and you know it's different, you know. And that's why I love just keeping with these guys, local guys.
Now, back to Strummin. Do you use do you have a local Strummin rep?
Yeah.
And who's your local Strummin rep?
His name is Mitch Garrison.
And one thing, and how often do you talk to Mitch Garrison? How often do you see him in the flesh or talk to him?
He stops by once every 3 weeks or so. And I mean, I do most of my ordering online, and so I don't have to call him up for everything. But you know, if there's a part I can't find online, or if I have a question, you know, he's always quick.
Well, riddle me this. You know, when after half a century of flying around the sun, you know, I've flown around the sun 54 times. Next August 29th will make 55. You don't really figure out what's right or wrong, but you recognize patterns.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And everyone I know who's placing, for me, the critical mass for a doctor is once a week. Would you let someone give you a vasectomy who only does it twice a year?
Yeah.
You know, and then he says, "Oops, I accidentally snapped your your nerve. I thought it was the vas deferens, but now you're a eunuch." But if you're not doing it once a week, I don't think you reach. I know you don't reach profitability. I know you don't reach quality. I know nobody in the B2C consumer world wants to go to a doctor to do a procedure and do it. But everybody that's doing one implant a week, they all have a local human rep in the field. And then everybody who buys them online has no human relationship on the ground. They never get it going.
Yeah.
I mean, I even asked T-Bone one time, I said it, because Tarun Agarwal is very business-minded, and he uses the most expensive Noble Biocare. I said, why? He goes, I don't care about any of that. I'm in love with my Noble Biocare rep, and he or she helps me. Yeah. So everybody that reaches critical mass has a human relationship that comes by their office. This guy. So what is that person doing every 3 weeks that you think would be irreplaceable than just buying them on implantsdirect.com?
Well, I mean, any questions, they'll ask you about any failures, you know, anything more, and they, you know, there's different deals they'll offer you, different continuing education. You'll come by, hey, we got this new course for this. You know, hey, we got this deal going on. You buy, you know, 20 implants, I'll throw in this. You know, and also sometimes I'll order the wrong parts or pieces. I'm like, hey, will you just return these for me, and you credit back. You know, or else if he's come by to train my staff on the sterilization of the equipment, all their, you know, the burrs and the kits. He's trained my assistants on displacement of implants. He's even, you know, we're going to set up like an open house for you. You know, he'd take care of everything, costs and the whole works. And so, you know, into bouncing ideas off, hey, you know, are people having troubles with this? You know, I have this. What can I do? You know, they'll find out for you. Just having like a, you know, that someone behind your back that you can just turn to and ask any questions at a time is extremely valuable. So yeah.
Let's switch to laser. You bought a Picasso and a BioLace. Are you glad? Buyers remorse?
Oh, I didn't. Those
recommended?
both came with the practice.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Picasso.
Yeah, I use the BioLace. It's so big and hunking thing that I just use the little Picasso, because most of my stuff is, you know, lasering some extra tissue around a margin, or maybe exposing an implant or something like that. But you know, I haven't really gotten too entrenched into the laser thing. Yeah, I could be completely wrong, but I don't see a ton of value other than just cutting some tissue. I know there's some great fancy lasers out there, but I usually use my Picasso.
You know, another thing, when you bought that practice, you know, I've seen an office near yours that was a disaster because the guy that sold this big office, a big chunk of change, and he's doing all these full mouth rehabs, and he sold it to a kid that came right out of dental school. This kid didn't have the skill set. He couldn't sell it. He couldn't do anything. He took that thing from 1.5 to about 650 out of the gate. Wow. And you did the opposite work. You found a practice, but you could bring in placing implants, and the office currently wasn't placing implants. So you could buy a dollar bill and bump it to $1.25 out of the gate. I've seen these young millennials that they don't get it. Like they'll buy a practice that's doing $800,000 a year, but $100,000 of that was molar endo, and now they go in there and they refer out all the endo, which you should have done the opposite. You should have bought a practice that referred all the endo and then figured into the price. You know, I want to go in there when I'm evaluating a practice, and practice brokers don't do this. How much money did you refer to who? Because maybe you're looking at it and say, well, I'm not going to do the ortho. Or maybe you look at it and say, I'm doing the Invisalign or whatever. But
I think one of some of the key factors in evaluating a practice is, you know, the first thing when I was looking at practice, I looked at the procedures they were doing. Because I remember there was a practice for sale that this guy was doing a gazillion mini implants. And that's just not my thing, you know. And, you know, he was doing $1 million a year, but I can't do that, you know, because I don't really want to do mini implants.
And why can't you do mini implants?
Well, I could.
You just don't believe in them.
I just would rather do a regular implant, you know, and so it's just a whole different practice model.
Well, you know, it used to be a huge price variant, the implant. But now the variance of the implant price.
I don't know a whole lot.
You can't really
about
say
them,
I'm switching to mini just because they're so much cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Yeah, so I like, because then you look at the procedures that are done, the percentage of procedures. I mean, if you're going into a practice that's doing a ton of implants and you've never placed one, that's probably not a practice you should buy, or else you should learn implants first. You know, or else if they're doing a lot of full mouth reconstruction and you don't know anything about occlusion, then you probably should steer clear of that practice. And another thing, a big factor is looking at demographics of practices. And one thing that I kind of lucked out with this practice is the demographic is probably mostly 45 to 70-year-olds, which those people probably need the most dental help, you know. And so you got a lot of worn dentitions, a lot of missing teeth. Whereas you go into a practice that, you know, they're mostly 20, 30-year-olds, full practice, you know. So there's a lot to look at when you purchase a practice, you know, and I think that just kind of scrapes the surface of, you know, what you
I still think the best buy I saw in my lifetime here in since I graduated in 87, there's a guy a year after me, he was in 88, and he told me, he says, you know, I really don't want to do endo and I don't want to do ortho. He says, all I like is fillings and crowns, and I really don't want to do anything other than fillings and crowns. He shopped more dental offices than I'd ever seen anybody do. Ended up going to Palm Springs. He found some 70-year-old dentist who only did amalgams, MODBLs. He didn't do crown. He patched everything for 50 years. This guy bought that practice, and without doing anything, 4 of those existing patients a day, one of those MOB amalgams would crumble apart.
Yep.
And he did 4 crowns a day just on emergencies, just on 50 years of clients coming in with a broken tooth. You know what 4 crowns a day is? 200 days a year.
Yeah.
That's 800 crowns a year.
Yeah.
And this guy, he had 4 operators. He had 1 hygienist, and he worked 2 rooms and had emergency. So he's only checking 1 hygiene. Dude, he just sat in Palm Springs and just crushed
patients
it.
a day, and there you go.
Because he found a guy who didn't do crown and bridge, and he did crown and bridge. So you shop, and what I like about you know, I got my MBA at ASU. They had a course on decision making, and the only really takeaway from that course is that you know, you don't want to be emotional, you want to be data driven. You don't, you know, no decision is better than a bad decision. And a lot of people get so caught up in they just want to buy a practice. Their goal was to buy a practice this year.
That's all new grads.
Or they emotionally rush. Well, we should get engaged because we've been dating a year. It's like, you know, you make up all this bullshit in your mind to make a bad decision. But the deal is that the square is the decision at hand. The triangle is the decision you went with. But the main thing I learned is the circles are all your options. And people don't fill out circles. For instance, let's say you want to go buy a house, and your real estate agent shows you a house, you like it, so you and your spouse buy the house. But if you would have looked at every single house available for sale that fit your criteria, buy your daughter's school, this and that, you might find out that you really overpaid for your house or underpaid or all things like that. And how many practices, how many circles did you fill out? How many practices did you look at before you bought your practice?
I mean, I got fairly lucky to find one kind of quick, but I still looked at probably 30.
Yeah,
and
30.
All the numbers, the demographics, the percentage of procedures they were doing, and that kind of also will tell you if you're getting into a practice where they're doing, you know, 4+ surface fillings and hardly any crowns, well, those are going to bust, and that's kind of where I got into too, is where there was a lot of patchwork done in the past, and so these people come in with broken cusp after broken cusp, and then, like I said, the crown, you're just doing crown after crown. Yeah.
So you said another thing when you bought the office, the one thing you did to it was to try to make it go paperless. And you bought iPads for health histories, consent form. So I think it's funny. I love the term paperless dental offices, because then whenever you go into an office that's paperless, you'll still find post-it notes.
Yep.
So tell us about your journey to go paperless, and how paperless are you?
They were already had digital charts, I think, for the previous 5 or 6 years, and so that was already in play. And so, I mean, the problem is they still had individual charts for health histories, which to me, I mean, well, you still got a chart, And so, my first thing was to do. We got the Yappy service, which what that is you can fill out your health histories and consent forms and health history updates on an iPad, and so that way you didn't need the health history at all.
And how did you find out about Yappy?
It's probably Dental Town.
Gina Dorfman.
Okay.
Do you know who owns Yappy?
I don't know.
Her name's Gina Dorfman.
Okay.
And you're married? Are you married?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Do you ever go hang out in L.A. or do you ever?
No, isn't he the Dorfman, the dentist out there?
No, Gina Dorfman. You're thinking Bill Dorfman,
Okay.
the cosmetic dentist in Beverly Hills. Mm-hmm. Actually, he's in Century City, across the street from Beverly Hills, 90210 or whatever. But Gina Dorfman has one of the most amazing dental practices I've ever seen in my life. She has 2 locations, probably 30, 40 employees, and but she, you know what Yappy stands for?
No, I don't.
Yet another practice management information system. I mean, she's like, am I really coming out with another one? There's so many on, but yeah, Yappy is. So why did you get Yappy, and what do you think of Yappy?
And
I'm sure Gina would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and it could be an impulse buy. I'm not sure. I just wanted a system that and it could have been from my website company too. I can't remember exactly how I heard about it.
Who's your website company?
Great Dental Websites.
Okay, Great Dental Websites.
Yeah. I wanted something that the patients could fill out their health history online before they came in, and I wanted something that could fill it, consent forms and everything in-house, so we didn't have to have those paper health histories.
And what practice management system did you go with?
We have Dentrix.
You have Dentrix, and how do you like Dentrix?
I love Dentrix. So we have Dentrix, and then we just about 6-8 months ago we got.
You love Dentrix. See that Dentrix? I have a guest on my show that said he loves. Just because I can't stand you doesn't mean that I don't have guests on my show.
Yeah, nice. No, I mean, I guess I don't have a lot to compare to.
Dentrix is a great system. They're the market leader, but the fact that they've stonewalled me for 30 years on hooking up to an accounting software it's a mortal sin in the Catholic. It's not a venial sin. It's a mortal sin, because none of these dentists know their costs, because they have made a conscious decision not to hook up to your QuickBooks Online, your Peachtree, any accounting software, because any dental office I go to in the United States, you just got done checking the hygienist for a cleaning exam and bite wings, and I'll say, hey, Chad, stop. Did you just make $12.19 after taxes, or did you just lose $18? And I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah,
no idea.
I guess from that perspective,
and the fact that I flew to Provo to tell the original founder. I flew to Melville, New York, to talk to Stan Bergman, the CEO of Henry Schein. I flew to Effingham, Illinois, to tell Eaglesoft. I flew to Minneapolis, St. Paul, to tell Pete Frechette, who's the CEO of Henry Schein, that you have to fix this. Your customer base is getting their ass handed to them on a platter because your practice management information. How could it be a management information system when it's not hooked up to your accounts payable, your accounts receivable, and your check register? And they just say, and you know what they all say to me? Well, you're an MBA, you're sophisticated, you're at a different level. These guys, they don't understand. Yeah, it's like, well, maybe you should educate them.
Yeah, from what I know about it, it's worked well, but I mean, I can go into the whole insurance thing. From what I understand, it's good with the insurances, and all my staff that takes care of that. They love it. So that's kind of my experience, and it works for me.
But what's your number one expense though in your office?
Staff.
Staff. Does it? Did your staff clock in and clock off on Dentrix, and does it do payroll?
They clock in, clock out, then I do payroll through like 80.
But why? Why do they not do payroll? I mean, is there a dental office they sold Dentrix to that doesn't have payroll? Have they sold Dentrix to one office where payroll isn't their number one expense? If I go to McDonald's, I clock in and off of the damn cash register. And then at the end of the day, it'll not only will it do my payroll, it'll say your labor cost for this McDonald's today was 19%.
Yeah.
You know, and your food cost was 31%.
Yeah, you know, you say, I think that's beyond a lot of dentists, to be honest with you.
I know, and a lot of dentists,
sad, but
a lot of dentists should not have gone to dental school.
Yeah.
You know, my dad was so mad when I went to go to dental school because he had sonic drive. He's like, Howie, that 8 years it'll take you to be a dentist, you could have 3 or 4 sonic drive. You could be a millionaire before you got to dental school. And my walnut brain's like, I know, Dad, and I love you, but I don't want to make cheeseburgers. I want to fix teeth like my next door neighbor, Kenny Anderson. I go to work with my dad, and we make chili dogs, and I go to work with Kenny Anderson, and we'd make root canals and crowns, and I just told my dad I wasn't going to spend 40 years making chili dogs.
Yeah.
But my God, my dad, his cash register when I was 10 years old, 1972, 10 years old, was national cash registers. There was more financial business information out of that cash register when I was 10 than there is out of Dentrix when I'm 55 years old.
Yeah.
That's, anyway.
Yeah, and that goes into, you know, the whole thing. Whereas, you see these, especially these new PPOs that are offering $40 for cleaning, and you're paying your hygienist $45 an hour. It doesn't make any sense. Like you say, you just lost money. You know.
So what is the going rate for hygienists in your area?
36, 45. You know,
36 to 45.
Yeah, depending on experience.
And what is the going rate for the price of and what are insurances paying us in the valley for a pro fee?
I don't take a lot of the really bad ones, but I'll get these fee schedules come across my desk, and it's, you know, I'll see $40, and I'm like,
I know,
I can't.
But which ones are you accepting though? I mean, for what? But what are you accepting?
Our lowest one is Delta Dental.
And how much are they paying you for a pro fee?
I think it's around like 55.
Okay, so exactly. So I'm paying. So hygienists are, you say 36 to 45.
Yeah.
And Delta's paying you $40 for a pro fee.
They're paying a little more than that.
Okay, or let's say 45. But the bottom line is this: financial accounting is void in Dentrix and Eaglesoft. Managerial accounting is void in Dentrix and Eaglesoft. And this game with corporate dentistry, how many corporate dental chains in this area, they buy their practice management systems, they hire a bunch of programmers and add on, and Pacific Dental. I mean, what Steve Thorne has done is he bought an existing practice management software back in the day, and then his programmers have added layers and layers and layers, and you're competing with people who know if they, to the penny, after tax, what they're making. And these dentists have no idea what they're doing. Yeah. And then you say to them, well, what are you going to do this weekend? Well, I'm going to go to a bonding course, and I'm going to go listen to Gordon Christian. He's going to review all the bonding agents. I'm like, is that really your problem? I mean, are all your composites falling out?
Yeah.
Well, I want to know the wear rates. Is that your problem?
Yeah.
Are all your fillings wearing down? I don't think your problem is your fillings are falling out and they're all wearing down. I don't think you have any idea where you're making or losing money.
Then, on top of that, you'll see people offering free exams, free. I don't know how they do. I don't market at all. I just do word of mouth, you know. And I don't know how some of these guys can afford to, you know, just shell out free this, free that, you know, to the freebie crowd and not know their bottom line. Like, well, what's that costing you? I don't know. I make X.
Well, another thing you used, you use weave.
Yeah, I use weave. I love weave too.
Well, to tell my homies what you talked about. You use Yappy.
Yeah, use Yappy to go paperless, even from consent forms.
And you like that? And you like Yappy?
Yeah, I mean it. And it does. Yeah, and you can.
I can assure you from Yappy that is Gina Dorfman. What does she go by? Gina Dorfman. It's her cat's name. Is it Mookie, Muffy?
Oh gosh, let me look it up.
On Dental Town, she's goes after her cat's name.
Yeah.
Gina Dorfman. Probably the most well-ran practice management, consumer experience. Probably dots the I's and crosses the T's more than any single person in the industry. And then you also bought Weave, which is out of Provo, which is an interesting area. You think of Silicon Valley. Up there in Utah, they call it Silicon Slopes. There's more dental companies up there. You got
Seems like
Weave,
it, yeah.
Dental Intel. Why did you buy Weave, and what did they do for you?
We needed a new phone system because when I came on board and bought the practice, the phone systems were they just needed new phones. They were 20 years old, I think. And so I'd heard about Weave through different CE courses, they'll have the reps there, give their whole spiel. And I looked more into it. It was going to cost about the same amount as what the current phone system did. And so what I like about Weave is that it's software based, or it has all of your patients in Weave. It's connected to Dentrix. And so it'll pop up when they call. It'll pop up their name. It'll say if their family members due for recare, if they're due for recare. And you can also, probably the biggest thing I use about it is, it records voicemails into where I can go on to log me in through my computer, and I can listen to the voicemail if I needed to, or I can listen to a phone call. I don't use it to punish staff or anything.
But it records your patient phone calls.
Yeah, and so what I can do is, if someone says, oh, well, so-and-so said on the phone, or, oh, did they call this patient, because they have a balance, I can just type their name into Weave, and I can see just at least the call history and listen to the call if that's needed. And a lot of times the girls up front will use that just to say, oh, what did we quote that patient? Or, what did we, tell this patient?
But here's the more important part of that. When your staff just knows that you're recording a phone call. The studies show that when you're in retail and you put a hidden camera a visible camera over the cash register, it stops 99% of internal peculation, stealing, theft. Casinos put them everywhere because Las Vegas attracts a wild crowd.
No, absolutely.
And at least 1% of that crowd are sociopaths. But when they're sitting there and they see all these cameras out there, even though there might not even be a human looking possibly at every one of those cameras. But a dentist, again, I'll say, what are you doing this weekend? He says, well, I'm going to take this bonding course. And I'll say, well, how many incoming calls did you have last month? Doesn't know. How many went to voicemail? No idea. How many of the voicemails were never even listened to?
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
And what does he think the problem is? His bonding agent.
Weave's great because I can see, we can easily forward things into a cell phone over the weekend, or I can just log on, through my computer from home, and I can see the numbers that call and what we missed, and I can listen to the phone call, or see what the voicemail, see what the concern is, and if someone else's cell phone, I can get on there and call.
And how much is Weave?
It's like $350 a month. I think that's what they were paying for.
And how much is Yappy?
$199 or $299, I think.
So you're paying $200 a month for Yappy, and you think that's a good buy?
I haven't price compared a lot of the services that offer, everything paperless.
I think it's a great buy.
Yeah.
Do you think? What about Weave?
Oh, I think it's great. Because if I was paying that for an analog service, then a digital software service at the same cost offering more options, I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I think the most sophisticated practices I know are on Weave. They're on or some type of demographic deal. What's the other one we did the other day?
There's a lot.
Rogart.
Practice by numbers.
Practice by numbers.
Yeah.
They're on Weave, practice by numbers, something like that. If they're crushing it in the new patient, I don't like the term new patient experience because it should be overall 5-star customer experience. I mean, the Hyatt Regency doesn't treat a new customer to Hyatt Regency. They're concerned about the businessman. They want to keep their customers for life. They're usually on Yappy, and my favorite software is actually Open Dental, simply because since it's open, you can actually start doing your own programming to your own accounting software. At least it's open to where you can start bridging it yourself.
Yeah. It goes beyond probably 99% of dentists, I'm guessing, being able to program things, and maybe not, but that's intense stuff.
Well, I am so excited you came by. Thanks for being a townie. Big fan of your 400 post. That's so cool. You're up the street. I'm sure you're an amazing role model for so many young dentists. And thanks for coming by the house on a Friday when you'd probably rather be out golfing or
That's
playing.
too hot for that right now.
It's too hot for golf. It is.
This time of day.
So, do you like Phoenix?
Oh, we love Phoenix. The
And
summers.
what do you love about it?
Well, really the whole city. We wanted a city where it wasn't a lot of traffic, and there's a lot of things to do, hiking. We're close to California, close to Vegas, close to Mexico. Airport's great. A lot of non-stop flights.
And what's the worst thing about it?
Being far away from family, probably.
And what's family, Iowa?
Iowa and Ohio, and then the heat, probably. But you know what? Every place, if it was great.
You're married, but you don't have kids?
No kids, no.
Yeah. But you know what he didn't say? He didn't say the heat. And you know why he didn't say the heat? Because he's from Iowa. So a lot of people say, man, it's so hot in the summer. Well, in Kansas, and I went to Creighton and Nebraska and dental school in Missouri. I mean, Ryan, when we were last time we were at Missouri, after the seminar, we went to one of the dentist houses, George Rui, and hung out on his boat and lake. And what happened to us?
Just eaten alive.
Eaten alive by chiggers. We looked like we had chickenpox. When I grew up in Kansas, every time we'd go out in the back and charcoal hamburgers and all this, the chiggers would eat the bottom 1 foot of your leg.
I know how that goes.
And this is 10 degrees hotter, but there's no humidity and there's no insects. I could go lay in my backyard grass, just lay in the grass naked. And, I mean, unless there was a scorpion or a rattlesnake, you're good.
I can go up, hour and a half north up to Flag, and then, it's 80 degrees.
And I lectured in Belize last year and took 2 of my boys with me. Oh my God, that's insects at a different level. And I was so glad I took them because I took Greg and Zach with me, and they were like, Dad, I will never complain about the 115 degree Phoenix. Because the 100 degree on the equator, I mean, you would walk down the beach and you'd see like a funnel of these insects, and the locals are saying, don't walk into these deals, and you'd see like a tornado funnel of insects. And the bizarrest thing I saw, this was so sad, when we were staying at this resort, this couple was on their honeymoon in Belize. You can't make this shit. The first night they're there, they're walking along the beach. It's the full moon, having a romantic honeymoon deal. And they walk into something, and they're bitten 300 times. The whole honeymoon, they're laying on their bed while the staff is putting calamine lotion all over their body, nursing these, they're just eating alive. And that's what I love about Phoenix.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's, it's got the heat, but, if it had great weather year-round, everybody would be here and run out of water.
Well, again, thanks for being a role model. Thanks for being a townie. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And sharing with all these millennials your secret sauce.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Howard.
Thank you, buddy.